Peter Pan, Chapter 16, Forgetting How to Fly. The other boys waited patiently downstairs to give Wendy time to tell her parents about them. When they entered the room, they stood in a row in front of the Darlings, took off their hats, and looked shamefully at their pirate clothes. Mrs. Darling agreed to let them stay, but Mr. Darling wondered how the family budget would support 6 extra children. Mrs. Darling was ashamed of her husband's behavior, and he finally agreed to find space in the living room for them. Peter, still hovering outside the window, said a final goodbye to Wendy. Mrs. Darling stood beside her daughter, still fearful that she might disappear once again. She told Peter that she would adopt all the other boys and would like to have him too. "Would you send me to school?" he asked suspiciously. "Yes." "And then to an office?" "I suppose so." "Would I soon become a man?" "Very soon." Peter shuddered. "I don't want to do those things," he said. "No one is going to catch me and make me a grown-up." "But where will you live?" Mrs. Darling wondered. "With Tinker Bell in the house that we built." "For Wendy," he replied. "The fairies will put the house high up in the treetops where they sleep at night." "How lovely!" Wendy exclaimed in a tone of such wistfulness that her mother gripped her hand to make sure she didn't fly off with Peter at that very moment. "I thought all the fairies were dead," Mrs. Darling remarked. "There are always a lot of new ones," Wendy explained patiently. She repeated to her mother what Peter had taught her on this subject. When a new baby laughs for the first time, a new fairy is born. And since there are always new babies, there are always new fairies. They live in nests on the tops of trees. The purple ones are boys, and the white ones are girls. "Will you come with me to the little house, Wendy?" asked Peter hopefully. "May I please, Mommy?" "Certainly not," declared Mrs. Darling. "Now that you're home again, I plan to keep you here." "But Peter really needs a mother," she protested. "So do you, my lovely daughter," replied Mrs. Darling. Finally, Peter flew away, but not before receiving a promise from Wendy and her mother that she could come with him once a year to the Neverland for spring cleaning. So every year until she became quite grown up, Wendy went to the Neverland. In time, Wendy married and was truly a mother, and then her daughter Jane flew to the Neverland with Peter. Then it was Margaret's turn, Jane's daughter. Someday, Margaret's daughter will get to fly to the Neverland, and so it will go on forever and ever as long as children believe in their dreams. And that's the end of Peter Pan.